All right, chapter 4. We are looking at perhaps one of the most incredible transformations that takes place during the lifespan of a human being. It is the journey of 9 months that takes place before birth. It's called prenatal development, and it's divided into germinal period, embryonic period, and fetal period. The germinal period is the shortest, it's about 2 weeks. Embryonic period is about 6 weeks, and then the fetal period, the longest of all three, is about 7 months. So let's look at the germinal period. A quick refresher. The female body is going to release an egg. It is met by a sperm, and fertilization will take place, resulting in what is called a zygote. The zygote is going to begin to duplicate and divide within hours of conception, and continues its journey down the fallopian tube into the uterus. Once it reaches the uterus, which is a journey of about 10 days, it now forms what is called the blastocyst. The blastocyst forms into two parts. One part is going to be the baby or the embryo, and that is the nucleus, and then another part is going to be the home of the baby for this period, and that is the placenta. So this journey from start to implantation is what is called the germinal period. Immediately after that, of course, duplication is going to happen, and differentiation is going to happen. And if you guys remember, we talked about stem cell research. We talked about how immediately after the eighth division, then differentiation cells are going to start to have jobs. And one of the most important jobs that are going to happen is the cells that will be in charge of developing the primitive streak. The primitive streak is basically what's going to be your central nervous system. This is where all the communication is going to take place between your brain and your body. So it's a very critical period of development. And if you guys remember, a critical period means it's now or never. Of course, we're in the embryonic period. We're in a very critical period for a lot of development. One is the neural tube. Two is, if you remember, the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the nose, and the extremities. So if you recall, thalidomide, the nausea medication, was taken during this period and resulted in babies being born without limbs. Why? Because this is the natural process. This is nature taking its course. And if nurture was to interrupt this process, then it's an now or never. Basically, this is why any interference with development will be detrimental to the health of the baby. All right, so this period is going to last, like I said, from week 3 to week 8, concluding what is about 2 months of pregnancy. Now we move into the third period, and that is the fetal period. And now the fetus is going to go through a lot of transformations. One of the most important of them is actually continuous rapid growth, but also differentiation as far as male and female. So around week 7, the differentiation is going to start developing from the inside of the fetus. So no visible organs are going to develop yet. But around week 9 is when the gene SRY, which is only found on the Y chromosome, is going to trigger the development of the tissue that will become the sex organs of a male. So if the Y is not present and it's an XX, then the fetus will continue to develop female organs. But if there was a Y, then that Y carries a piece on it. Remember, the chromosome is Y chromosome carries a piece, and that piece is a gene, and that gene is called the SRY. That gene is going to trigger some hormonal release that will signal the development of tissues that will turn out to be male organs later on. All right. So by the end of the third month, sex organs are visible, but they're very hard to see through an ultrasound. So if you are pregnant, or if you know someone who's pregnant and they're interested and are excited about finding the gender of their baby, chances are they might want to wait until the sex organs are visibly developed around, I would say, maybe 18 week or 20 weeks. Is much more visible and much easier, and probably less mistakes can happen. All right, completed the third month. Now we move into another section of the fetal period, and that is the middle 3 months. Just as important, just as critical. These are the periods that will see a lot of systems starting to develop in the fetus. Actually, movement is going to happen. The mom can report feeling a flutter. So that is the baby actually starting to move within the womb. We're going to see a stronger heartbeat. The heart had already developed, I probably forgot to say that, in the embryonic period. So not only do we have the neural system, the neural tube developing, but also heart starting to develop and pulsate during the embryonic period. So very important period. Now in the fetal period, during the middle 3 months, of course, the heart is still going strong. We're going to see a stronger heartbeat, development of the digestive system and the excretory system. We're going to see the development of hair, fingernails, toenails, buds for the teeth. We're going to see a lot of development in the brain. So there's a lot of brain cells, neurons, that are going to develop, and connections within those brain cells, it's called synapses, are also going to develop. One term that you need to be familiar with is the age of viability, and what that means is basically the cutoff time of needing to be 100% inside the womb in order to have even a chance of survival outside the womb. So 22 weeks is what scientists believe is the age of viability, and this is what a preterm newborn can possibly have a chance of survival outside the mother's uterus. Before that, it would not be possible, simply because the systems are not developed. So with 22 weeks, the system are underdeveloped, but they're there. And with the support of a lot of medical intervention, of course, an incubator and neonatal unit, then there is a chance for that baby to develop. Next, we move into the final 3 months. In the final 3 months, we're going to see a lot of growth, a lot of maturation, a lot of weight gain as well. So it's a critical period for the neurological completion of the systems, the respiratory system. Even though the lungs are there, they're not breathing yet. We're going to start to see a type of breathing that the baby is engaged in. We're going to see the cardiovascular system improve. All of those connections, the heart valves and the arteries and the veins, are going to mature. And we're going to see an expansion of the lungs and contraction of the lungs that is assimilating that breathing movement that the baby is going to do when it comes out. So more and more growth. And one area in particular that's going to see a lot of rapid growth, especially in the last 3 months, is the brain. The brain is going to increase in the number of neurons and neuron connections, to the point where it does not fit within the skull, and therefore it starts to fold into itself. So when you see a brain with a lot of folds, that is a signal of a lot of neuron and connections. And the difference between this picture, the baby at 28 weeks compared to 38, is amazing, because it shows how much growth happened within that brain. All right. So, if you've been around a person who's pregnant, you probably know that usually they say it's 3 trimesters, and by the end of the 3 trimesters or 9 months, the baby is ready to be born. Well, trimester system is basically breaking that 9 months into 3 months. The germinal, fetal, and embryonic periods are just more scientific terminology for what is really taking place inside the womb. At about 38 weeks or 266 days is what we call a full-term pregnancy from, of course, the day of conception. However, most females do not really know the day of conception, and therefore sometimes the typical calculation is for 40 weeks of pregnancy, because it adds the 2 weeks of anticipated last menstrual period, and with the end of that last menstrual period is usually your ovulation, which is about 2 weeks. So when you hear the 40 weeks, that's counting from the last menstrual period. If you hear 38 weeks, that's counting from conception. The fetal brain at around the end of the 38th week will signal the release of particular hormone that will start this delivery process. The fetus is going to start to move into the birthing canal, the uterus is going to contract, and all of this process can take from 1 hour to 1 day. There is no really specifics for what each woman will go through. On average, active labor is about 14 weeks for a first-time baby, and usually gets shorter and shorter with the second and the third. What are the stages of labor? 3 basic stages. The first one has to do with the contraction and dilation of the cervix. So the contraction is going to happen, the baby is going to move through the birthing canal and kind of get ready at the entrance right there. So cervix dilates, baby's head move into the birthing canal. This is stage 1. Stage 2 is the baby actually showing through that cervix. So it's what we call crowning. And crowning meaning literally the cervix is a circle around the head. So the baby's head is emerging. It's actually showing that it's ready to come out, and it's completed. Stage 2 is completed with the birth of the baby. The third stage is, of course, the expulsion of the placenta, the home of the baby for this period of prenatal. All right. Birth. Birth takes place in different places throughout the world. All babies are born at home in poorer nations. However, in developed nations like the United States, we choose different places. We have the option of going into a hospital. We can go to a birthing center. We can choose to do it at home. Even when we do it at home, we might choose to do it in a bedroom. We might do water delivery. There are so many options out there. And the majority of developed nations, however, tend to use sterile procedures in hospitals, electronic monitoring. You're pretty much strapped from the minute you enter the room until you leave. And of course, drugs to kind of dull the pain, either by just calming your body and relax it, or an epidural, which is usually a nerve block so you don't feel the contractions. Some people resort to the help of what is called a doula. A doula is basically a person who is trained to support the laboring mom, It is not to be mistaken for a midwife. A midwife is a trained professional that actually can deliver the baby. The doula is not. She is just a coach, a supporting person that could offer massages, that could time the contractions, that could provide words of encouragement, put on some music. All of these are things that are meant to relax the female through the process of delivery. Right. This is natural birth. However, some complications can happen leading to what is called a cesarean section. And of course, this means that the female will be, or the baby will be surgically removed from the uterus. And the reason why it's controversial because of the incidence. A lot of countries report higher incidence of cesarean, sometimes leading us to believe that it is there's an ethical issue there, that it might not be recommended because of what's best for the mom, but rather what's best for the doctor or the hospital. The advantages is that it's easier to schedule for both, for a convenience for the mother and convenience for the doctor. It's quicker, and of course, you're not waiting to labor. God knows how long you're going to take. And of course, it's more profitable for the hospital. The disadvantages are very much the reason why it should be limited to emergencies. It is potentially more complications happens because of cesarean birth. It's just not the natural thing to do. And it's been shown in research to reduce breastfeeding and create more problems for the infant later on. So this is where taking into consideration why it's being done and asking the right question of your doctor. Is it really needed? Is it something that I cannot do without? This is why it becomes very important to be well educated. A lot of doctors might recommend for a female to actually go through a cesarean just because she had one cesarean, and hence the concept once a cesarean, always a cesarean. But that is not true. It is a recommendation because people or doctors want to kind of take away the liability on their shoulders of having any ruptures during the second delivery. But statistically, research shows that it is possible for a female who might have had a cesarean delivery to actually have a natural delivery on the second or third baby. Just some cool pictures that I wanted to add of an actual baby being born still within the amniotic sac before it was popped and the baby coming out. This is how the baby lived all 9 months inside the womb.